Hello to everyone, my name is Sandro Cáceres and today I'm going to talk about risk planning in software development. When we start a new project, we often have high expectations about it. We are very excited and we want to develop a high quality software product. In order to achieve this, we establish objectives, add milestones, deadlines, etc. Also, we create a plan, between quotes, because it is often incomplete and sometimes don't take into account one of the most important things when we are planning to develop a product, the risks. But what can happen if I don't take into account the risks? What is the worst situation it could lead? Well, if we don't take into account risks, our project can get in strange situations and we wouldn't know how to face them. For example, our project can run out of budget, someone of our team may quit, or in the worst case, the product we developed is useless. There are a lot more things that may happen and affect our project if we don't have a risk plan. What do we mean with this? There are often situations that we can control, and if we don't have a plan of how to face them, they can lead to the failure of our project. They can lead to the failure of a lot of things. We have to plan what we're going to do if, for example, we run out of money, someone leaves, the product isn't correct, etc. We need a plan. We need to know what to do, or in our case, we're going to fail. Then, these situations presented in the previous slide are called risks. But you may ask, what are risks? Risks are defined as uncertain events that may have a positive or negative impact into the development of our project. In this work, we will focus in the risks that may have a negative impact to our projects. One, for example, some team member quitting, we run out of budget, we have a bad design, there is human mistakes, etc. All of these things may impact negatively into our project. Then what happens? Or this risk we need to understand that can lead to the failure of our project. Risks are always threatening our objectives and are always there. We need to be aware of them and develop a strategy to face them. In other case, our project may die along with our budget and the project manager's career. Risks are always there, are like a hidden enemy. We are just waiting for them to happen. So, when we have a risk plan, we are able to face these risks and get over them and defeat them. Well, there are different types of risks. They can come from the project, they can be technical, or they can be from the business. If it came from the project, it can be budget problems, team member problems, plan problems, etc. When it's technical, it's, for example, we don't have the software to develop the product yet. And from the business, this happens when our product doesn't meet the client expectations and it's rejected. How do we avoid this? How can we avoid these strange situations? There is a process called risk planning. This involves 3 important steps into a risk plan. The first one is identifying the risk. We need to know what we are facing to. The more the merrier. We need as many risks as we can so we can cover all the possible negative situations that may happen during our project. Then we prioritize. In order to know which one of them we should care more about, and planning responses so when our risks become issues, we will know what to do. Then, first of all, we need to identify them. This is a critical step into the risk planning process. It's the base of our risk management plan, which is the final product of this process. It is composed by a risk register, a risk breakdown structure, which is a categorization of the risks, and a risk analysis step. This process can be often tough, so here are a few tips for risk identification. First of all, you should establish a risk hierarchy. This way you can classify them and develop strategies according to the type of risk you may be facing. It's also a good idea to brainstorm the risk with your team. You should do a meeting and they should give ideas to cover all the possible risks in a project. This will help you to get as more risk as you can and see the project from different perspectives. After this, you should discard the ones that are the most likely to happen. We often think that I say the more risk the merrier, but we also need to understand that we can take care of all the risk. I will explain that later. So we need to discard those ones who are less likely to happen. Also, we could look at assumptions. When I mean assumptions, it's that we often assume that we will have everything to develop our project and nothing will go wrong. That's a mistake. We should think in the worst case scenario. This isn't pessimistic. It's a mechanism to think that all risk we can. Other thing we can do is to check the past projects. When we dive into our history, our records, we can see that there are some certain risks that repeat frequently, or we are in a similar scenario. So we can get risk from these past projects and apply them to our present projects. Finally, if you have any doubts, you should ask an expert. Experts have been through the same process, through the same things, through the same risks. So they have a lot of things to say, and I'm pretty sure that they will notice you about a risk that you may have not considered. But you need to be careful. First of all, it's impossible to list all of the risks. What do I mean with this? When we will last our entire life trying to list all of the risks. There are a lot of variables we are not considering, there are a lot of problems we are not seeing. To avoid overwhelming us, we need to focus just on the problems that we can face, that that are most likely to happen, to focus our efforts in preventing them. Another thing is that it's impossible to take care of all of them. That's why we are prioritizing. We aren't going to take care about a risk that happens 1 in 1,000 times, 1 in 10,000 times, because it's very, 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 very rarely that this will happen. Either way, we want to take care of a risk that happens 1 in 20 times, 1 in 10 times, because it's more likely to happen and also can impact more times our project. With this, we finish the identifying step. After identifying the risk, we should have this in our risk register. We have the description of all of our risks and an ID in order to identify them in a more effective way. After this, we prioritize the risks. For this step, we have a formula that will help us. It says that the priority of the risk is determined by the probability of the risk to happen multiplied by the impact it will cause in a project. These two factors answer the question how often it will happen and how much it will cost us. For probability analysis, we can check past projects and copy the values. As I said before, we may see that some risks repeat and we know how often they occur, so we only copy this value. Also, we can compare it to known probabilities. What do I mean with this? For example, if I pick a number of a dice and roll it, there is a 1 of 6 chance to get the number I selected. In the same manner, we can compare our risk to things we already know the probability to happen and get this value. Other thing we can do is decompose the risk. What do I mean with this? When we have a very complex risk, we can break down into a smaller risk and calculate the probability value of this smaller risk in order to calculate the value of the big risk. Finally, we can look for an expert advice in the matter of risks. Now our risk register may look like this. We have, in this case, the probability is measured in a 1 to 10 scale, where 10 means the risk always becomes an issue and 1 means that it rarely becomes an issue. Now, for calculating the impact, we need to say that this is easier to define, but it's not always an exact number. Why? Because it's usually defined as matters of cost. It can be how many $1,000 it cost me to repair, how many money I'm going to spend to repair this. For example, if this risk happens and becomes an issue, I'm going to spend $10,000 repairing it. Also, it can be defined as a schedule. Normally, this is how many days will it take me to solve it, how many days I'm going to spend into this issue. The final definition is quality. This is the risk, how much the risk will affect into the quality of the final product. Now we add the impact factor into our table, into our register, and it should look like this. In this case, impact is defined as the number of days it takes to the team to solve the issue. In this case, for example, for the risk number 2, it takes 9 days for the team to repair it. Finally, we multiply these factors and we get a score. This score is the risk priority of the risk. Then we sort them from higher to lower, and this is the prioritization of a risk. We should take care of the most high priority risks because they are the most likely to happen and also are the ones who may have a greater impact in our project. This is the column that matters here. We shouldn't look to any other. With this priority, we exactly know what to take care about. In the end, we plan our responses. Our project is constantly hanging on a cliff and may fall at any time, so we have many options to take care of the risk we may encounter. The first strategy is to avoid the risks. It is by far the best. Since it eliminates the risk, it finds another path to achieve our goals, but avoiding the potential risks. But what if I can't find another way? Then you should mitigate the risks. It consists in developing a plan that will minimize the damage that this risk may cause if it happens. If it is a risk we can mitigate, we should look for someone that can. This is transfer. The best example are the insurances. These companies cover the risk if it happens. For example, if our hardware fails, the insurance gives us money to replace them immediately. Finally, if we can apply any of the previous strategies, we have no option than accept the risk and face the consequences it may cause, even if it has a great impact in a project. We often only accept the risk if the impact is very low, and the probabilities to happen are very low also. There is an extra tip. It is good to identify triggers. Triggers are events that turn risks into issues. If we are able to identify them, we can anticipate to the issue and apply our response plan in a more efficient way, even avoiding the risk damage. Finally, our risk registers should look like this. In this table, we can see where the 3 steps of risk planning apply. The trigger section is optional, but we recommend to use it. The identification process is to have the risk descriptions. The prioritization tells us which one of them is the most important. Finally, the plan responses tell us what actions we need to take if this risk happens. So, why is this important? It is important because it improves our software development process. Being aware of what we may encounter gives the team confidence and provides them tools to face these issues that may happen during the development of the product. Also, the more we plan risks, the safer our product becomes. If we know our enemies, we will be able to defeat them and keep our product safe. This is a crucial part, as I said before, as I said in the beginning. You can't just don't plan risks. Risks are going to happen, and when they happen, you may want to know what to do in those cases. If you do a correct risk planning, you will notice that your project is going to be easier to handle. If something bad happens, you say, no, wait, we planned this, we know what to do now, so we are going to execute what we planned. And you will see that your project is going to go well, it's going to give results, and you are going to develop high quality software products. Now, this is great, but is there a method to calculate my whole project risk in order to make a risk plan? Answer, yes it is. This is the paper I'm going to talk about. It's a new approach for software risk estimation. What happens now? The problem is that when we are planning, we may notice that it is difficult to cover all the risks we may encounter, and the methods developed up to date have many gaps, and they don't often include some risk categories that are important for us. Some of the methods that we have today to calculate the total risk of a project often don't include the human factor, which, as we know, it's a very important factor in software development. I think it's the more important source of risks that we may encounter, because humans are uncontrollable. Either of the things we can control it, but not the human behave. In order to answer this, the authors have two questions. First of all, which are the major factors that contribute to risks, and how are risks taken into account for the risk estimation purpose? Where do risks come from? Are they from humans? It's from budget? It's from plan? It's from technologies? And also, how important are they? Is software more important than human? Is the plan more important than anything? Is the budget more important than anything? This we will see in the next slides. They tried to answer these questions by applying a survey. It was applied from novice to pro developers in the top 10 software companies in Nepal with a 95% confidence level. It tried to include as much as risk factors as it can to cover all the sources from where risks come from. The survey helped the authors to identify 6 types of risk factors. These are the human, the software, the planning, the resources, the cost, and the schedule. The human factor is one of the most important risk factors. It involves the human behavior, the teamwork, and mistakes in development. For example, making changes into the master branch. The software factor includes bad design, bad implementation, bad models, bad diagrams. Our product is modeled in a good way, so it can lead to a poor quality software product. Then, planning and control refers to bad planning, unrealistic delivery dates. We don't know who does what task. Modules aren't divided in a manner it can be developed. In short words, our plan is bad. It doesn't serve. We can't use it because it's not good and it won't help us develop the software. Also, control. We may lose control of our project if we don't plan the risk well, so it can lead to the failure of the project. Finally, the resources. Resources mean to all the technologies and all the accessories or things that we need in order to develop our software product. It may be smartphones, laptops, hardware, certain internet connectivity, and technologies that we need to develop. For example, let's say I need a Core i7 processor in order to execute Android Studio to develop my app. If I don't have this piece of hardware, I can't develop my app. So it's a risk that I may not have it. The cost then. The cost tells us about, it's self-explanative. It's self-explicative. It tells us when we run out of budget, or in the other case we overpass the budget by cost we didn't expect into the software development process. Finally, a schedule. The schedule refers to terrible deadlines, underestimation of objective achievement time that can lead the project to failure and stress our team. After identifying these 6 factors, they asked the software companies to rank them in a scale from 1 to 5. This rank was based on the importance they think the factor has of the total risk to the project. The Y column is the project total risk. The goal was to get the Y component from the other 6. So, what do they did to get this Y component from the other 6? They applied linear regressions and got this formula. If you replace the x's with a number between 1 to 5 according to the importance of the factor of one of the 6 factors in your project, you can get the total risk of your project and decide how much time are you going to invest into your risk planning process. What did they get? They get that the 6 risk factors are responsible for the 90% of the risks according to the R-squared factor of the linear regressions, which tell us how accurate is this function in order to the data that we gave them. It was 0.92%, which is pretty accurate, and explains that these 6 factors are responsible for the 90% of the risk in software development. Although this project is limited because the study was only in Nepal and it's just theoretical, it hasn't been applied to running projects. It was applied to finished projects. Then finally, what are the contributions of this project to risk planning to a risk planning theme? They added the human factor into a method for risk planning. Various methods doesn't include the human factor, even though it is a very important factor to consider into the estimation of risk and risk planning. And then we have an estimated project risk from the beginning, so we can decide how much time we will invest into our software, into our risk planning process. And this is the end of the presentation. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoy it. These are my references. Goodbye. See you next time.